Dictators don't rise overnight. They are built in silence, one freedom erased at a time. That is the dictator paradox, and it is more terrifying than most people realize. When most people picture a dictator coming to power, they imagine chaos, armies storming government buildings, coups in the middle of the night, and violent crackdowns in the streets. But in reality, most dictatorships don't begin that way. They don't arrive with a dramatic takeover. They grow slowly, quietly, and almost always with the consent of the very people who will later be trapped under them. The paradox is this. In the search for safety, people willingly trade away the freedoms that protect them. And by the time they realize what they've given up, it's too late to take it back. It always begins small. A nation is uncertain. People are afraid of crime, afraid of corruption, afraid of economic collapse. They crave order, stability, and certainty. And so they look to a strong leader, someone who promises to cut through the chaos and restore balance. At first, the changes feel harmless. Stronger laws to restore order, a tighter grip on speech to prevent what is called dangerous rhetoric, more power to the leader to get things done without what he claims is the corruption of endless debate. To most people, these changes feel like a shield. They feel safe, they feel necessary, but power, once given, is rarely returned. The first true warning sign of dictatorship is not tanks in the streets. It is silence. In 1933, Germany still had newspapers, comedians, and satirists, but slowly they began to disappear. A few were banned outright, while others were pressured into loyalty. In Soviet Russia, the same happened. Writers, reporters, and intellectuals who spoke too loudly against the state were suddenly gone. It never began with mass executions. It began with silenced voices. It happens gradually. A journalist is fired for asking the wrong question. A late-night host is suddenly off the air. A reporter known for criticism loses their platform. At first, people shrug it off. They tell themselves it's normal. They say, maybe it's better this way. Less division, less arguing. But every voice that disappears makes it easier to silence the next. Freedom does not usually die in flames. It withers in silence, while the public convinces itself that nothing is wrong. As the voices fade, the culture begins to shift. Debate itself is no longer seen as healthy. Questioning the leader is treated as disloyalty. Criticism is painted as dangerous, even treasonous. Dissent is framed as division. And soon forced unity becomes the highest virtue. This is how democracies wither. People stop speaking freely, not because they are directly ordered to, but because they are afraid of the consequences. They censor themselves. And in doing so, they complete the dictator's work for him. Dictators rarely need to seize power by force. They are granted it, welcomed, elevated by the people themselves. The fearful want safety, the angry want revenge, the tired want stability, and the desperate want a savior. The dictator offers himself as the solution to all of it. And in their hunger for protection, the people hand him the tools to enslave them. By the time the trap becomes obvious, resistance is nearly impossible. History shows the pattern over and over. In Rome, Julius Caesar did not seize power all at once. The Senate gave it to him step by step, until suddenly the Republic was gone. In Germany, Hitler was elected, supported, and handed emergency powers that were never returned. In Russia, Lenin promised liberation, only for Stalin to turn that revolution into one of the most brutal dictatorships in history. The faces and the slogans change, but the story never does. The dictator's greatest weapon is not the army or the police or the prison system. It is the illusion of safety. The belief that giving up freedom will somehow preserve freedom. The belief that silencing a few voices will somehow protect the many. It is always presented as temporary. Just until the crisis is over, just until the nation is stable, just until the danger has passed. But the crisis never ends, the emergency never fades, and the freedoms once surrendered are never returned. The people convince themselves that this is protection, not control. They don't recognize the bars of the cage because the bars are built out of promises, promises of prosperity, promises of unity, promises of strength, and promises are far easier to believe than hard truths. But the day eventually comes when truth itself becomes the enemy. To speak out is dangerous. To question is treason. To resist is impossible. By then the paradox is revealed. The people were not saved at all. They were captured. Dictators are not invaders who storm the gates. They are reflections of the people's own fears and desires. They are built step by step, silence by silence, freedom by freedom. Not forced from the top down, but assembled from the bottom up. And that is the chilling reality of the dictator paradox. The tyrant exists only because the people created him. Freedom does not vanish in an instant. It dies in whispers, in excuses, in justifications, until the day comes when there is nothing left to give, and by then it is too late. The dictator did not take power, the people gave it away.